What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're going to start a series called Weather Wednesday, and I've got Mike Gronke over here. He's a meteorologist, weather guy. I'm not sure exactly what he does. I know he predicts weather for somebody. It's a 135 carrier out of Central Ohio. I'll let you figure out who it is. So basically, what we're planning on doing is with this series, I want to kind of go over some stuff that maybe anybody from a student pilot to an ATP would be able to maybe learn something. If you learn anything in a day, that's always a good day. So we're going to start off. We're going to talk about some very basic stuff, some METARs and TAFs. And then as the weeks go, every Wednesday we'll have a different subject that we'll cover in some way, shape, or form. So today we're going to start with, like I said, METARs and TAFs. So what is a METAR and TAF? It's our weather, right? It's the weather that we look at. It's a forecast, and it's a current current weather condition. I'll just go with that because I don't feel like saying.
I'm gonna go with the fancy words. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let Mike kind of introduce himself a little bit, and then we'll kind of get into it. So, Mike, if you want to go ahead and tell the people who you are.
Sure. Like Brandon said, my name is Mike. I work for a private aviation company. We do forecast not just around Ohio, but all over the country, all over the world. I actually graduated from Ohio State, go Bucks, back in 2014. So it seems like way less time ago than it is, but whatever, it is what it is. So yeah, like Brandon said, anything we can do to help, even if you learn just a little bit, I agree. Anytime you can learn something new, it's always a good thing. So, and I think some of the weather stuff out there is it can get anywhere from overly easy, sensational on the Weather Channel to way too technical. Nobody actually cares, other than like me, about it. So we'll try
Sure.
we'll try to get the good part of that spectrum in the middle here. So learn some, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah. And like I said, we're just trying to do high level stuff to where anybody from like a student pilot could get in here and understand what we're talking about. And
Sure.
that's kind of what this first one I think is kind of going to be angled at. It's going to be more towards a student pilot, somebody that's just learning. But hey, if you're an ATP and you learn something, cool. So Mike,
Maybe there was that one code in METARs. You're always like, what is that?
yeah. Well, it never mattered before, so why would it matter now?
Right. I've never seen that before.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's go ahead and look at a METAR first, if you would, please, and kind of explain to me what you look at as far as, I guess, breaking up a METAR of what means what.
Sure. So I know when you first look at a METAR, it kind of looks like someone just spazzed out on their keyboard, like all over the place. Um, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? And don't, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that, yes, I realize there are apps out there that decode this stuff. Um, there might be some student pilots who are like, why would I need to know what a METAR,
Yeah.
how to decode a METAR? Yeah. But for that day when your app crashes or it's not working or you're having to actually listen to the AWAS, on the radio or phone or whatever, and it's spitting it out in this format, is good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So breaking it down, we have an example of one here. I think this chart kind of breaks it into all the different major parameters. Like Brandon said, METAR first and foremost, it's the current weather, and it gives you the location, the time, and then various elements that specifically pertain, especially to aviation weather. So we'll start out number one here. It says METAR. You might think that seems kind of redundant. That actually doesn't always say that. It can say SPECI, which means special, leaving out a couple letters. It says METAR when it's a routine, like top of the hour, or near the top of the hour type report. Um,
Huh.
in the event that between the hours something crazy happens, usually it's like a big line of storms or a front passes and there's a big wind shift or whatever. They'll issue a special one or a specie, and that's why that one there can say something different.
Well, see there, I've already, it's been not even that long, and I've already learned something. I had no
There we
idea
go.
that
There we go.
changed. So let me ask.
Actually, when I was looking this up, I forgot they actually changed the code. I'm just used to like seeing like, you know, each update throughout the hour. I was like, I forgot they
Yeah.
actually call it something different.
So does METAR, I can't remember, does METAR actually stand for something? Like I know what it is. I can never remember what it stands for.
Oh, I should have definitely prepared for that one, and I cannot remember. I'm trying to think what that actually stands. I think you're right. I think it does. It might be something that's as simple as like meteorological aviation report.
Okay.
And even if
Well,
it's
you know what?
not,
Let's go
we're
with
gonna
that for
go
right
with
now.
that. Yeah, because that
Yeah.
makes total sense. So
Yeah.
let's go with it. All right. So after your first part here, it says METAR, you got your station identifier. Pretty straightforward. Hopefully, it's the correct station that you're trying to find the weather for. So if you're in Nashville, Tennessee, you got it right here. BNA, KBNA, because of course all airports in the lower 48 start with a K. Um, that's pretty self-explanatory. Moving on from
Yep.
there, you're going to get the date and time. So the first two numbers here are going to be the day of the month. They do assume that you know what the month is. So sorry, you got to figure that part out on your own. So this will be the 28th day, whatever month it is. And after that's going to give you the time in universal time or Z time. Um, if you aren't comfortable doing Z time, you can always convert it back. Although I do recommend getting comfortable with Z time at least to some degree, especially if you're flying and you're crossing time zones and stuff, to help keep your head from spinning when you're trying to calculate like how long your flights are and your time of arrival and all that stuff. Zulu is a nice kind of grounding, central
Yeah,
central
and
time.
aviation, everything pretty much revolves around Zulu anyway. So
Yeah,
if you don't
exactly. So
know
you
it
might as well
now,
just kind
you're
of get
going to
used to
have to
it.
know it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you might as
exactly,
well get used
exactly.
to it.
Yeah. So this one here says again, 28th day of the month, and it's 12:51 Zulu, is the time. Next identifier here tells you, if it's an automatic report or, it may have, I'm trying to think, I think COR for corrected, if it's a corrected one, which you can do is manually entered. That's not really super important when you're reading the weather out. It just tells you that it's an automatic station, reporting the weather. It could be an ASOS or an AWOS. I believe the difference between those two is that an ASOS is managed by the actual, like the NOAA, National Weather Service, whereas an
Oh,
AWOS is, I believe, managed by the FAA or at least the airport. One of the two. So the ASOSs tend to be at your like major international airports. They're maintained, I don't want to say to a higher standard, but sometimes, if you're looking at the likelihood of one of these being broken, an AWOS is a little higher likely to be broken. We'll just put it that way. Um, Going past there, the first thing that comes up is the wind. So the wind's going to be given to you in degrees. So in this case, 120 degrees, which is just south of east, if you will. And it gives you the knots in two numbers. Actually, I think it can go to three, but if it goes to three, you have an issue. You know what I mean? Like, that's like
yeah,
you don't
right.
want
You're
there to
probably
be.
not landing. That's
Yeah,
what's
do not
going on
land if
there.
you see three, if you triple digit wind speed at the airport. So this is telling you winds coming out of the east southeast, 120 degrees, um, and it is at 8 knots. It can sometimes have in there a gust. So if you have your steady state wind, which in this case for this one is 8 knots, but maybe let's say it's a little bit of a windier day, maybe the wind on average is around 20 knots, but there's some gusts in there as high as 30. Then it would say 20 G 30 for the gust factor being 30. Um, Next along the list here is the visibility. So that's going to be in statute miles. You can see here it says 4 statute miles. Once you get down, I want to say it's under 2 or so, you'll start seeing it in like quarter-mile increments. You might get like 1 3/4, 1 1/4 to give a little more precision there, because nobody cares if it's 4.5 versus 5, but it might matter if it's one versus 1.5 for whatever approach you're using. After that, you're going to have the actual weather discriminator, the actual like weather that's happening. The weather, there's the precipitation piece, and there's also whatever the obscuration is, or that doesn't always show up there. But in this case, it's saying there's light rain and there's haze. Or sometimes you'll see in the wintertime, if there's ever like relatively heavy snow falling, it'll say snow and fog, which is really just it's saying it's snowing so hard it kind of looks like it's foggy. But that's where you get in there in that block. I
So
will
what are
add to
some of
that.
the sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Oh no, you're good.
what are some of the more common ones you'll see for weather as far as things to look out for
Well, I'm
there we
glad you
go.
asked because I actually happen to have this webpage open that has
Nice.
all of the these more common ones. So what I was about to add was before you get to the actual type of precipitation, there is going to be or there wouldn't or normally is going to be something in the front of it. You either have a minus if it's light. If there's no prefix, then it's moderate. So if it just says RA, it's just moderate rain. And then a plus is heavy. So here's your discriminator. If they're that one, I don't think didn't have it, but let's say it's I don't really ever see patches of rain, but let's say maybe rain showers. You might see SHRA. If it's a thunderstorm, TS. But it's going to say TS and RA because you generally don't have thunderstorm without rain. You have freezing. I don't think I ever see partial, but you'll get sometimes like MI shallow goes with like fog, shallow fog. Think of like when there's if you're at like in kind of like a valley and you see that fog where it's like maybe floating just off the top of the runway. It's not foggy all the way up into the sky, but there's just that little bit. That's kind of what that MI or the shallow would be for shallow fog.
That's
Here's all
probably
your
patches
precipitations
too,
over here.
right?
Yeah, I've seen patches as well. It's kind of like it's just kind of drifting by. When I used to work the overnight shift, I learned what patches were. It was the creepiest thing. It was like just like this little bank of fog just like floating by, and you're like, what? Like, am I in a horror movie? Like, this is weird. Um, so as far as different types of precipitation, you got drizzle, rain, snow. Those are all pretty common. If it's really crazy cold, you might get snow grains. That means you don't have like full formed like snowflakes. That's when it's like 0 degrees outside. And it's like powder pixie dust kind of falling. Ice crystals kind of be along the same lines. Ice pellets. That's actually sleet, more common term. Maybe we'll do a winter weather precipitation one of these times.
Yeah.
Raymond. We can go over how sleet forms. But basically, is ice pellets or sleet. That's a winter type of weather. Whereas the opposite would be, or I guess I should say, a similar phenomenon: ice falling from the sky. Be hail, which is GR here, and that is when you have that's actually like hail inside of like a thunderstorm.
Okay.
GS is small hail or snow pellets. That's remember, I think I taught you the term grapple one time, right?
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, a little while ago. I couldn't tell
Yeah,
you
a
what
long
it
time
meant
ago.
now.
I think that would get reported as GS. And then unknown precipitation, that's always fun. That's usually you see that if it's like 33 degrees and it's like doing everything. And the
Oh,
METAR is just like, I don't know. There's something going on. I'm not really sure. Or you'll see there on the left here, this freezing discriminator. Like you can have free FZRA for freezing rain. Some stations, and maybe it's the AWASs, I think it's the AWASs don't always have the ability to detect that. And so if it's raining but it's like 28 degrees, you just get up. Just unknown
oh,
precipitation. So
okay.
and here's your obscuration over here. You got mist, fog, smoke. I saw smoke in the Ohio METARs for the first time in my entire life, like basically all this past summer.
Oh, from the
Um,
Canada stuff, right?
yeah, yeah. When the METAR is cursing at you and just says "f you,"
F you.
then that's not good. So luckily we didn't have any volcanic ash, but that is another thing. Um, Out in the plains, you'll see dust. In fact, one thing I like to laugh about is usually dust is accompanied with wind, so you get blowing dust, which reads as mildew in the METAR. So like you get that out in like West Texas, like in the summer and stuff. Never actually seen sand, but I guess that's the type that can show up in like I don't know Saudi
I
Arabia
actually,
or something.
well, I was going to say, I actually think I remember, looking at METARs and stuff when I would deploy out to Qatar and well, Kyrgyzstan didn't really have it, but like going out to Qatar, there'd be sand, and you would have blowing sand or
Yeah,
something like that. That was just, it was awful.
Yeah, you're probably gonna almost always have blowing in front of that because I mean I'm not sure why else sand would be just like
Yeah, why it would
floating in
matter
the air.
because it's there.
You know.
Yeah.
Um, and then well, haze, you got haze all the time. That's a pretty common one, especially in like the summertime if it's kind of smoggy or whatever. And then spray, that's probably only if you're on like a lake shore. If you're in or I guess ocean, anywhere near the coastline, if you have like a lot of high winds and there's a lot of like water spraying off the lakefront or something like that. So these are your common things you get. I mean, I believe there are a few other ones. Like we can look up the full list if we ever really wanted to, but these are the ones that you're gonna most time see.
That's funny because I think there's probably 3 or 4 of them on there I've never seen. Um,
Yeah, like I said, I forgot there was sand. I actually didn't know that that spray was that was one of them. So there's some that are less common than others, that's for sure. Um, so like I can't remember if there's one for tornado. I know you can put it in you can see in the remarks they'll say like funnel cloud and then gives like the direction. Can't remember
I
there.
actually
I think there is. I think it's
it's
FC.
FC. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that would probably go where the TS normally is. So like in the front of the
Yeah, and
wing. So
that would be one that I would hope would not be common. Like that's one I don't want to see a bunch.
yeah, and the odds of the tornado at any given moment hitting an airport probably aren't very high either. But I have
Well,
seen it
right,
before. That's definitely one. It's kind of like the triple digit wind speed. You're not going to be landing if that's in
right,
METAR.
exactly.
So all right. So once you get past your weather here, whatever's going on, you have your sky conditions, and so you can have multiple items here because there might be different like heights or different decks of clouds above. You have various terminologies, which I think I have that also on that website, which I'll show you in just a second. But you got few, scattered, broken, overcast. It's just by the percent of the sky that's covered up by clouds. And after that, you get your report um, in hundreds of feet. So, like in this case, 010, 10 hundreds is actually 1,000. So if you say it's just like flight level in your altitude, So 010 is 1,000. So this is broken sky at 1,000 feet, and you have your overcast at 2,300. So I will actually pop over. I believe it's on that same website. There you go. So you might see the code SKC for sky clear. That's just completely clear. Um, I guess fun fact, SKC means a person did it themselves, and CLR is the computer doing it.
Oh,
There you go. I forgot
nice.
about that. Few, we got 1/8 to 1/4 of the sky. So I mean, literally as it's described, just a few clouds. Scattered, 3/8 to 1/2 of the sky is covered. Broken, that's when we're starting to turn in from like, we'll say scattered maybe is like mostly cloudy. And then broken, I'm sorry, it's partly cloudy. Broken would be mostly cloudy. So 5/8 to 7/8 of the sky is covered. And overcast, you have just a full solid deck of clouds overhead.
Hmm. And then it looks there's that note there is broken is considered a ceiling as well. I mean, obviously
That is
overcast
correct.
would be.
Actually, yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. So um if you are going to an airport that has or you're using an approach or your VFR or whatever, because you need a certain ceiling level. Yeah, broken is considered a ceiling. So if you
Gotcha.
have broken 1,800, then the ceiling is 1,800 feet.
Cool.
Good call out. All right. So after your sky condition, you got your temperature and dew point here that's reported in Celsius. So 21/17 is a 21-degree temperature. It's a 17-degree dew point. The closer these numbers are, the higher the relative humidity. So the more common thing that you hear reported on the news is the relative humidity. Dew point actually is my preferred measure of like how humid the air is because it's more of an absolute measure. Like a 60-degree dew point is a 60-degree dew point. Like that is just how much moisture is in the air. That's how humid it is. Relative humidity, I mean, it's the term would imply is relative. You could have 95% relative humidity for, any number of temperature and dew point combinations. It's just how close they are together. As
Okay.
you see these
So
numbers, go ahead.
sorry, again, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Huh?
because I've always been kind of fuzzy with the relative humidity stuff. So relative humidity, we're talking that's a percentage of the temperature it is outside. Is that a way to look at it?
It's more of a percentage of the air that's being taken up by the water vapor in the air. So think of it this way: if it's foggy, the relative humidity is probably near or at 100%. That's because the air is holding all of the moisture it possibly can at that given temperature, and it has got to the point where it is now condensing just ambient in the air, and that's why you have fog. Um, does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah. Because all right, so if we break down a little bit more, where we're talking about temperature and dew point.
Mhm.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a temperature and dew point is if both of those numbers are equal, or I should say, let me start out with saying the dew point. That's the temperature at which the air will become the most saturated with moisture. Correct. So if it cools
Yeah,
down to that, that's as much moisture as that air can hold.
that is correct.
Okay.
So
So
when the temperature hits the dew point, it literally dew basically, I mean, the simplified version is dew forms on the grass, right? So water starts to condense in the air.
okay, so that's where you start to get either some fog or dew, or could have the possibility of precipitation if we're talking about having convective activity or something like that around. Or does
You
that
could. It
is that
doesn't
a
have to
completely
hit.
different thing?
It doesn't have to hit the dew point for it in order for it to rain. Although in most cases, if it rains long enough, you're going to get pretty darn close. Because usually when
Okay,
it brings the temperature down. Right? When it rains, it tends to cool off. And the longer it rains, the more moisture is in the air. So the two are going to start to kind of come close together. If you think about those like, long, cloudy, rainy days, when it first starts raining, the temperature and dew point are probably kind of far apart. And as the day wears on, they get closer together, and then you kind of get that just dreary kind of low overcast or even foggy type of weather if it lasts long enough.
okay, okay, cool. Thank you.
Sorry, a little tangent there.
No,
But
that's
that's the it's more just trying to make sense of what that, like, why do we care what the dew point is, like, or what is it, why is that even in the meter. um
right, right.
so again, there, temperature and then dew point in Celsius. After that, for all the pilots out there, full transparency, I'm not a pilot, so Brandon can do all the pilot terms and everything. That's the altimeter setting. So that's the setting for setting to the standard atmosphere, which is on the thing. Isn't it
2992 is
29.7?
standard atmosphere.
Yeah, 29.2. Yes.
Yeah,
So
in
that's the
inches of
altimeter setting for
mercury
there.
anyway.
In inches of mercury, correct. Um, After that, you don't always see the remarks, but if there is anything interesting, the remarks could be, I mean, there's like all kinds of things that could be in the remarks. You might see, in this case, it says RAB, which is rain began, and then 25 is at 25 minutes past the hour. You
Okay.
might get in there like lightning, or when if the rain ended, it'll have an RAE after that for rain ended at maybe 45 minutes past the hour. Um,
Oh,
Trying to think what else. You'll see like sometimes they'll report the exact temperature and dew point in like decimal. They'll say like, we'll pull up one here in just a second. So the remarks are if they're whatever they feel like putting in there, whatever if it's an automated one, whatever the computer, if there's any extra weather events to, lightning distant north or northeast or whatever. So,
oh. Now,
so yeah,
and this is maybe stepping back one to the altimeter setting, and you may or may not know this, but do they, like, let's say we're talking international stuff, depending on where you are in the world, does that change to millibars?
that is a good question. Something tells me the answer might be no, because this type of thing tends to be pretty standardized
Okay.
across the board. But I would have to look that up because I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, domestically, it's always going to be in inches of mercury, so that's
Yeah.
mainly what we're concerned with. And really, there's only a few countries now, I think, that use millibars. Um, but that's essentially okay. So I kind of said millibars without really explaining anything. Millibars is essentially the metric version of inches of mercury. So standard in inches of mercury is 2992. When we're talking millibars, it's 1013. So it is a little bit different, but again, it's just the metric version. uh, of it.
In true, I'm going to say meteorology form because if you think about it, you actually have something here that is mixing both US and metric form because we got
Uh,
statute miles instead of kilometers. You got, feet, but then this is in
yeah,
Celsius, so your
Celsius.
temperature and dew point are in Celsius, and then your altimeter is in inches of mercury. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
I'm not sure who came up with this. That's like it's common practice for like in weather maps that when you get above the surface, everything's reported um in like Celsius temperature wise. But for whatever reason, I'm assuming probably for the common American reading it, these surface maps are always reported or usually reported in Fahrenheit.
In Fahrenheit. Yeah. Well, that's because I mean,
Only
let's
the
face it,
nerds care about what's happening.
the common person's going to hear it's 25 degrees outside and put on snow boots. Like
Yep,
it's,
pretty much. Yeah,
they're not going to
that's
think that
correct.
that's a normal temperature. Uh,
Yeah. Well, let me take you from here and show you a quick. Maybe we'll find. I know I was just telling Brandon we're in luck. There is some interesting weather happening around the country. There's only one area of interesting weather really happening around the country right now. It's in the plains. Go figure. Um, so I'll start off by saying fantastic resource for weather is the Aviation Weather Center website. It's the I call it the ads page. It's literally just aviationweather.gov. There's lots of websites out there where you can look up METARs and whatever. So by all means, I'm not saying this is what you have to use. This is just one it was kind of taught to me when I was learning aviation weather, and I think it's a pretty nice website. They actually says there's a beta version which I have not tested yet, so I don't look like an idiot. I'm not going to do that. But I guess they're actually giving it a facelift finally. I think this is probably how it's looked for the last 10,
oh,
15 years,
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's
maybe even longer than that.
ever since I started flying in like '03, it has looked like this.
Yeah, so in true form, the federal government caught up after about 20 years or so.
Right.
So, um, all right. So up here at the top, yeah, a bunch of things you can select from. I'm going to go to observation. That's where the METAR is, and it's going to pull up actually a map of METARs. And I turned on the radar to cheat, so I would know where this maybe a potentially interesting METAR is. It looks like based on some of the symbols going on here, this might be a really interesting one, and it definitely is. Let me see if I can uh, oh, make this a little bit bigger. Can you read that?
So
Okay.
yeah, that's coming through fine. So I
Cool.
know that we're that like wind and like wind shear and all that kind of stuff is going to be coming up in a different video.
Yeah.
But real quick, can you kind of mention the flag there and what that means?
Yeah, so I don't have a screenshot prepared of all the different symbols. You can look that one up on your own if you're curious. But well, on a weather map, you have various icons here, like this little. I guess it's kind of an R shaped is means it's a thunderstorm occurring there. You have your temperature and dew point. Um, and then this flag is the wind. It's showing it points in the direction that the wind is coming from. And then you have your various little notches on here. The full flag, that's I believe is 50 knots, which is not thankfully for these people here, it's not 50 knots right now. So that's if you get like a little triangle kind of shape like true flag on there. Otherwise, I believe it is the long sticks are 10 and then the short is 5. I'll cheat. Yeah, probably because you got three, looks like three long sticks there and one short, just be about 35. It says gusting 36.
And
So,
then
I
the
think
red must be the gust, right?
yes, I would say so. Yeah, that's what it looks like because you got just 1.5 for which would be, I guess, 15. Yep, it says 240 13. So yeah, yeah. So the red would be the gust. That I
Cool.
may change a little bit based on what website you're using. I don't. I think in some cases I've seen where the flag is the barbs or not flag. The barbs are just a steady state, but it looks like they're using the red for the gust. Um, and I just went way too zoomed in, but we're gonna go and pull this up anyways. There we go. All right, so here's a current METAR, Lincoln, Nebraska, getting slammed by a pretty decent line of thunderstorms. So LNK is your identifier here. This is on the fourth day of the month in Zulu. So good call out. Zulu hour changes, at least if you're in the U.S. The Zulu date changes before before it does, Eastern time, whatever. So when for me and Brandon right now, it's the third day of the month, but it's after 0Z, so it says 4. 139Z. So this is not top of the hour one. This one, the website looks like it's coding it. It just says METAR, but I have a feeling if you look at the raw output, it'd probably say like SPECI or something like that. Um, so 0139 Zulu, winds coming out of the 240, so just slightly south of west. 13, but then gusting 36, which is quite the gust factor.
Yes,
That's
23
pretty
knots.
high above your steady wind speed there. So fairly gusty there. Your visibility 3/4 mile. I'll just say from experience that's pretty heavy rain to get it down to 3/4 mile visibility. Something that wasn't in our example, but in at major airports you'll see this. It's the runway RVR. So that they have little stations at usually at I think it's all three. Well, I don't know if it's always all three. Touchdown, midpoint, and the rollout, right?
Uh, I mean, at a bigger airport, that would be the standard. Yeah, the
Yeah.
touchdown zone, the mid, and the
Some
rollout.
airports might only have two. Um,
Yeah.
but this is telling you, first of all, what runway they're using. So they're using runway 36. And it's saying anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 feet is their actual visual. So that's pretty much in line that's closer to a mile visibility on their actual RVR. So the 3/4 is what the actual ASOS machine out in the field is measuring, whereas this is what they're actually seeing looking down the runway.
So again, just that RVR to kind of emphasize that's runway visual range. So
Yeah.
that's essentially it's a light beam. I think is kind of how they use it. It shoots it out and then kind of bounces back, almost like a radar, to kind of tell how far it went. Um, and it 5,000 RVR is about a mile visibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, well, it was a mile. These are things we should probably know as adults. 5,280 feet, I think.
Yeah, 5,280 feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so again, the ASOS is measuring 3/4. They're seeing it anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000. So you're right around a mile. This is the actual, right down the runway visibility. As the radar behind this would suggest, it says plus TSRA, so that's heavy, technically heavy rain and thunderstorm. That's my nerdy nitpick. Actually, someone taught me that, but I think it's kind of funny. You can't have a heavy thunderstorm. A thunderstorm is just a thunderstorm. You could have a thunderstorm with light rain. You could have a thunderstorm with heavy rain. You can't have a heavy thunderstorm. People often read that because it says plus TSRA. Oh, it's a heavy thunderstorm with rain.
Yeah.
It's a heavy rain and there's a thunderstorm. BR also that's just the sensor. It's an automated sensor. It's picking up on it. It's probably in between giant sheets of rain coming by. It slows down for a second and it's like, oh, there's also mist.
Yeah, and I always remembered BR being missed because it's baby rain.
Yes, that's what I was literally about to say.
Yeah.
I think it's baby rain. I don't know why, but that always helped me remember that.
Hey man, it sticks.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Well, whatever helps you learn it, it's it's kind of what you have to do when you're studying to be a pilot, right? This one has quite a few clouds, so it's got few at 800 feet. Those are probably just whenever you can think of like when a storm comes in, there's like those really scraggly couple low clouds ahead of the storm. That's probably what's going on there. The ceiling it says broken, so that's the ceiling, so broken 1,900 feet. And then above that, there's a deck of overcast at 4,500 feet. It says it's 18 Celsius temperature, 17 dew point. So it's been raining for a while. Kind of makes sense that those two are getting close to each other. And after that, you got your various remarks. I think the AO2, I had that pull up over here. I think that's the type of precipitation sensor it has on board. You'll see also here it tells you when the peak wind was. So the peak wind, PK wind, was 260 of the west at 36 knots, and it gives you the time. It was at 1:30 Zulu. There was also a wind shift. I believe that is the degrees of the wind, like how much it shifted, but you don't hold me to that. Or maybe that was actually not even the time of the wind shift occurred. You got lightning distance, and normally it's going to say northeast or south if the storm is not right overhead. But in this case, ALQDS is all quadrants, so it's lightning like literally everywhere.
Oh,
Um, so there's just lightning all over. I mean, you can tell on the radar it's like right over them.
yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
yeah.
you got the rain began at 59 past, and then actually this one includes when the thunderstorm began and when it ended, and it looks like it began again to get
Oh,
super
geez.
specific. I'm not really sure how the thunderstorm ended at 24 and then began at 26, but that's what the computer thought. So, and
Maybe
then
it
this
was a
P00,
maybe it was a break in the maybe it was a break in the lightning
yeah,
and
there was
stuff. I
just
don't know.
enough quiet time, but it's like, oh wait, just kidding, there's more lightning.
Yeah.
You got, and then this one here is how much rain has fallen, P0035. Um, I can't remember if that's in inches or millimeters. I would imagine it's inches, but as we just discussed a minute ago, it would not be the only time that
Yeah.
the same report goes between um, metric and US. And then after that, you have your the specific temperature and dew point. So the temperature is 17.8 degrees Celsius, which is why you have an 18 up here. The dew point is 16.7. That's why you have it rounds up to 17 up there.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's probably the most interesting METAR we're going to find tonight, I think. Quite a bit
Yeah.
going on there. But hopefully that makes sense to everyone. I mean, I guess leave questions in the comments, right? If you have
Yeah.
any additional things
Yep.
you're wondering about.
Questions, comments, anything like that,
Yeah.
go ahead and put them in the comments. And then we'll try and answer them the best we can.
Brandon's going to
So,
just know, but in the rare event he doesn't, he'll ask me. It's fine.
uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
I know
All
all.
right.
That's why I'm doing this.
He knows most. I'm just here to sweep up the little extra. So, all right. Shall we proceed to a TAF?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go over a TAF real quick.
All right, so we'll try to make this one fast. I don't have the pretty diagram like I did for the METAR, but I do have it kind of in different colors here to kind of call out some of the various elements. You're going to see a lot of this look very similar because what a TAF is really doing is it's predicting what the METAR is going to be during the time that the line you're reading is valid. So you started off with here, we have our airport code. This is for LAX, LA, Los Angeles, California. Once again, it gives you the day of the month. So this is the 22nd day of the month. The next item here is what time the TAF was issued. They're usually all around, unless they need to update it, they're usually all around 06, 12, 18Z. So this was just before 6Z at 520Z. Then you have your period of which it's valid for. So um, this is talking about the entire TAF. We'll get into here in a second how you know what lines are for what, but for this entire TAF, it's going from 6 Zulu on the 22nd all the way until 12 Zulu on the 23rd. Some TAFs go out 24 hours, some go out 36 hours, usually like the major airports. So in this case, LAX obviously is a very major airport. Those usually go out 36 hours. So you're starting off conditions when it begins at 6Z on the 22nd. VRB, that's variable, in case you're wondering, light and variable winds, or just the direction, I should say, is variable. It's calling out 0 or 8 knots as the wind speed. The visibility is next on here, so 6 statute miles. Sometimes you'll see it say P6. That just means it's greater than 6 because nobody really cares when it gets above 6 statute miles.
Yeah. You
Whether
pretty much
it's 6
see
versus
anything
10,
at that
no one
point.
really
Yeah.
cares. This next thing after that is going to be the weather that's expected, and I have actually never seen PR, and I think it's partial in a TAF before. I thought this was a weird example, but PRSN, so that's partial snow. Because normally you're going to see in there like scattered showers or vicinity showers, or little minus RA for light rain, something like that. And then you have your clouds above that, which it works the exact same way as the METAR. So you got few scattered, broken, overcast. The you can decode the height the same way. So you just add the two zeros. So this is 2,400. Your actual ceiling forecast here would be the broken layer at 3,000 feet. Then there's an overcast 4,800.
Okay, and then Mike,
Now in this,
the PRSN, can you mention that again? I'm not sure exactly what happened, but you broke up just a little bit during that one.
sure. So that is, again, that's just the weather, the whatever the weather field that's happening. So I believe PR is partial. I think I had that. I guess I was saying I've actually never seen that in a TAF before. I'm not even 100% sure what they mean by partial. So this is a weird example. Actually, this is kind of a funny example because it's LA and they're forecasting snow. Maybe if
Yeah,
LA actually were to get snow, they wouldn't know what the heck that means, and so they just throw partial in there. I
it's
don't know.
through partial in.
Um, well, it can't totally snow here. It's Los Angeles. Um,
Right.
but that's what that is.
Okay.
So as you go down in a TAF, you're going to go out in time. And there's going to be there's two common examples of when the weather is going to change. And basically, that's what they do here is when the weather is going to be something different, they put a new line. So you're either going to see FM, which is from. So what that's saying is, ignore this tempo line for just a second. When you see this FM, it's saying from or beginning at the 22nd month at 1800 hours. This is what the weather is going to be. Um, Another block you may see though is tempo. So that's a temporary condition happening. I believe it's happening less than half of the amount of time that it covers, but with at least a 50% probability of it occurring. You'll see this used pretty frequently for like thunderstorms. The dirty secret of the meteorologist, if they have no evidence, like a pop-up thunderstorm type forecast, you're gonna probably see tempo in there for the for the slight chance of thunderstorms.
Nice.
Um, so
That's
in
like
this case,
they put 10% chance of rain like all week, even though it's like sunny every day, just to cover themselves,
right
right?
now, by definition, the tempo, if it's just 10%, they shouldn't put the tempo in there, because if it's a really tiny chance, they'll just leave it out. Um, you may see, I mostly see this internationally. I don't think the U.S. Weather Service uses it, frankly, but you can have like Prob 30. I think you can have Prob 40 too. And it's the same as a tempo. It's just the probability of it occurring is a little bit smaller.
Ah,
But
okay.
in the U.S., they don't. I don't really see that very frequently. At least if some other service offices may use it. But anyways, you got tempo here. It gives you your time again, the 22nd month from 900 hours until 11. And then this is your temporary condition. So you'll see that prevailing above here was 6 miles and whatever ceiling. It's saying there could be some occurrences of it dropping down as low as 4 miles during this 2 hour time frame with this ceiling. You can see the ceiling dropped from 3,000 down to 2,400 as well. And again, down here, you get the from block, which is where starting at 18Z, now the weather is this. You get, winds are 160, 10 knots, 6 mile visibility, and then back to that somehow partial snow, and then the ceiling from there. Any
Cool.
questions from you, Brandon, on that?
No, so it's basically it's basically just a METAR that looks farther out, essentially.
Yeah.
As far as being able to read this stuff. Um, yeah, man, that was good. So I'm trying to think because there's one other one I remember seeing, and I can't remember what it was, but it stood for like becoming. Have you ever
Oh
seen that?
yeah, I think there is a becoming, and I cannot remember the exact. Let's see if it's on this other website I got here.
BEC something like CMG or something like that. And usually, anytime I would see it, you'd have your forecast, which again, the TAF is a terminal area forecast. That one is an acronym I actually know, which means it's for the terminal area. It goes out so many miles. I don't remember the mileage off the top of my head. I think it's like 5 miles outside of the actual airport.
Do you
But
mean like for the vicinity?
yeah, for the vicinity, isn't it like 5 miles from the airport
It's either
itself?
5 or it's 5 to 10.
Five to
Let me see
ten.
if it's on. I'm looking at there's a decoder on the ads page. I will say I found so the from is actually when there's a rapid change expected, and basically occurring in less than an hour, and becoming is when there's a gradual change in the weather expected.
Ah,
So
okay.
there you go. There's your little extra. And the ads page does also have zoom out a little bit here. TAFs as well. You can actually plug in a specific airport code down here if you'd like, or you can use this little map tool. I'm thinking somewhere just out ahead of that line probably has at least something somewhat interesting. Here's Norfolk, Nebraska. Here we have TAF issued on the third day at 2320 Zulu. And the whole TAF covers from basically it's the 0Z TAF. So it goes from 0 to 2400 hours on the fourth. You have your winds 170, so about south at 17, expected to gust to 23. Some light rain and thunderstorms, and then your ceiling from there. If you see the CB, that's what people used to say, watch out for your Charlie Bravos, your cumulonimbus cloud. So that is just letting you know that it's overcast 6,000, but when you get out of that 6,000 deck, there also might be taller, cumulonimbus thunderstorm clouds in the area. You can
Which
see here they're trying to
because it says there's thunderstorms.
Yep, exactly. There's a tempo here where they're trying to time out when that line's going to actually hit. And as you saw in that METAR a minute ago, when the line hits it, the wind shifts around the west. So you can see here you got a west wind at 270, potentially gusting as high as 40, and it drops the visibility and has the moderate rain and thunderstorm in the lower ceiling. So that's kind of that, there could be some storms in this general time period, but we're really thinking that the worst of it's going to be during this tempo. And it's probably not going to last the whole hour. If it was going to last the whole time, they could have a whole nother from line on there. But you know how lines of storms typically are. It lasts for like 15, 20 minutes with a really bad weather at least, and then it moves on.
Yeah.
So, and then just some very boring weather after that, and these little front groups here with some light winds and a few clouds. So there's a little something interesting going on today, at least.
Cool. Well, Mike,
I think that covers that's it. Yeah, you got TAFs and METARs, fun stuff, super fun.
Yeah,
stuff.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and kind of going over that. And that's, I learned a couple things, and that's awesome. So hopefully anybody else watching did too. As always, I'm going to do the whole shameless plug. Go ahead and like and subscribe. If you want to see more stuff like this, put it in the comments. Let us know what you want to see. If there's any kind of specific weather thing that you want to see, go ahead and put that in there too, and maybe we can kind of do something on it. I didn't mention this before. Mike is, like I said, a weather guy. He's also a licensed dispatcher, even though he's never actually worked as a dispatcher. But
weather's cool.
So he knows a little bit more, I think, than he lets on most of the time. But I hope you guys learned something, and if you did, great. If you didn't, watch another video. Maybe you'll learn something on it. For now, we're going to go ahead and say see ya, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
All right. See ya.